So welcome to this video. My name is Alex, and I haven't been making a lot of videos recently. And if you've looked at my YouTube profile, you'll see there's a lot of videos shining a light on some of the evil that's going on in the world, and some of the deception that's occurring through the media. And the media is really deceiving a lot of people, confusing a lot of people, and leading them down dark avenues. So I've been shining a light on these things quite a lot. But my real focus, what's really important to me, is God. And I've been acquainted with God for many years, not just through belief, not just because I was taught to believe in God, but through my own exploration, my own spiritual exploration. I came to discover the reality of God, and I learnt how I'm related to God and how I'm designed to operate with God. And so for many years I've been doing what I feel, or doing what God has shown me will bring me closer to Him. So simplifying my life, purifying my body, my mind, and just living a more simple life in nature. So I try and spend as much of my time in nature as possible. And so as you can imagine, if I'm focused on the light, and I'm focused on God, and my heart, I've given my heart to Jesus, so Jesus lives in my heart. And so to focus on all the very, very dark stuff in the media is not my favourite thing to do, because there's a lot of dark information in the media, a lot of very, very negative and horrible and pessimistic and unpleasant stuff, unpleasant messages which are being aimed at young people especially. And so looking at all this stuff and knowing that what darkness is going on, or knowing some of the evil things that are happening, is sometimes it's very challenging to sit down and want to talk about it or shine a light upon it, because what I really want to do is shine light upon God, or point people's attention towards God, because as I said, God is central to my life. And God is the light in my heart, and His love is what has enabled me to heal from all my pain, suffering, darkness and fear. 20 years ago, I was suicidal. I was very depressed for a long time, and I was suicidal. I attempted to end my life on several occasions. The last occasion was I was sitting in a car down a dark country lane, with a hose pipe running from the exhaust into the window, and I'd taken a handful of sleeping pills, and I think I'd drunk a bottle of wine as well. So I really just didn't want to live anymore, and I was very unhappy. And I fell asleep. Unfortunately, I woke up. I was very surprised to still be alive, and the moment I wake up, I was overwhelmed by a sense of gratitude, and I realized, I really felt that life was a gift, and that I was so lucky to be alive. And in that moment I also realized that my life was mine to choose what to do with. I lived with so much guilt about living the way I should do, being the kind of person I was supposed to be, doing what I should and doing all the right things. I felt this immense pressure, and I didn't feel free, which is part of the reason I felt so trapped and miserable. But when I woke up, I suddenly felt this freedom, this weight was lifted from my chest, and I realized that it was up to me to choose what I wanted to do with my life, and not to feel guilty about it. But this was long ago. This was 20 years ago, and I've been on a long journey since then, a long healing journey. And the main part of my healing journey has been releasing fear, because I was a very fearful young man. I'm 41 years old now. But I had a lot of fear. I was afraid of many things, afraid of other people's thoughts, afraid of upsetting people, afraid of people's disapproval, afraid of being unpopular, afraid of people being angry with me, and then of course there are many other things that I've learned that I was afraid of my fate in this world, afraid of being at the mercy of people who are not so loving, people who have evil intentions. When you start making your information public on the internet, then you bring attention to yourself. And so when you're shining a light on some of these evil things, such as satanic ritual abuse, and other very dark things. That's probably one of the most dark things that I've shone my light on, or shone God's light on. But when you're bringing attention to these things, then you get negative attention, and that's not something I enjoy or want. But I've had to learn how not to be afraid and to release all fearful thoughts. So when my mind or my ego wants to conjure up a fearful thought about the consequences of me doing or saying something, then I know it's my ego at work trying to create darkness, fear in my body, fear in my heart. And so I ignore every single fearful thought that arises in my mind, every single fearful thought about what I'm doing, what I'm saying. Then I just ignore it, and I come back to knowing that God is with me and God is protecting me, that I am safe in God. You know, the Bible says perfect love casts out all fear, and that perfect love is God's love. So when we allow God fully into our heart, by allowing Jesus into our heart, then there can be no fear, because there is only a bright light shining within, and fear is darkness. Fear is the cause of spiritual darkness. So if we allow God's light into our life and into our heart fully, then there can be no fear, there can be no darkness, because the light eradicates the darkness, and thus God eradicates fear. So when you put your full faith in God, and you call on Jesus when you need him, then there can be no fear. You feel safe because you have this life preserver, or a life raft that you know you can always reach out for, so you won't drown. You won't drown in the darkness or drown in the fear, because God is there, Jesus is there, and they will always be available to you whenever you need them. So, you know, I know so much about what's going on in the world, and so much of the deception. There's so much deception in the media, such clever, subtle deception. For example, right now, many people are thinking that there's this Nazi-type agenda to, or the media is putting out this idea that there is this Nazi-type agenda where everyone is going to be treated like the Jews in Nazi Germany, and that if people don't fight against this, if people don't fight against this agenda, then we're all going to be in concentration camps and so on and so forth. And the media is intentionally putting out that idea. The media and the governments and the powers that be, the elite, want you to think. They want you to think that you are trapped, and the only way to escape is by fighting the system, fighting the government, ultimately fighting the police, fighting the authorities that are implementing these measures. And so, because the agenda is destruction, the agenda is conflict, war, the agenda is war. So if you're a peaceful person, if you don't want war, if you don't want to fight, then you have to put your faith in God, that violence isn't necessary. You don't need to fight the system, you don't need to fight the government, you don't need to fight the police, you don't need to fight against all these restrictions. You just need to trust God. That's what we all need. We need to have a relationship with God and trust him and know that there is no need for violence, there's no need for anger. You see, the only reason people feel the need for violence and anger is when they feel cornered, when they feel like there's no other option, when they feel like they're trapped. It's like an animal, a dangerous wild animal. You trap it in a corner, you corner it, and it's likely to get very, very angry and violent and dangerous. But if that animal has all the space it needs to escape, it probably won't bother you. So if you make all the people, if you make the general public feel like they're trapped and there's no escape, and the only way to escape is to fight, then you have war, you have conflict, you have bloodshed. And this is what humanity is being prepared for through the media, this type of world of violence, where violence is everywhere, where bloodshed is everywhere, where misery and doom and pessimism are everywhere. Yet we have to remember that there's no reason for misery or pessimism or doom, because God is with us, and God is the light in our heart. And so the media wants to spread doom, the media wants to spread fear, the media wants to spread negativity. And so if you're one of the type of person like me that refuses to be controlled, or refuses to have their thoughts or mind controlled by the agenda of others, then you have to refuse this agenda, to be afraid, to be negative, to be pessimistic, to get into doom-laden thoughts, and hopelessness, that's where the media wants to take your mind, because that's how dystopia is created. Dystopia is created in the mind first. So if you can create a dystopic mentality in the people, and that's a mentality of pessimism, hopelessness, fear, doom, if you can create that dystopic mentality, then you are basically leading people along the path to create a real world dystopia. Because you can't have a joyful dystopia. You can't have a dystopia where people are happy and free and they're not worried. And that's what we need to be. We need to have a mind which is not concerned about what the government are doing, not concerned about fighting the system, but just staying in the light, staying in joy, staying in faith, trusting God, having a heart which is buoyant and refuses to be oppressed by the media's agenda for fear, pessimism, doom, misery and hopelessness. So defy that and stay in the light. Be defiant in your embracing the light, embracing the love of God, and trusting in Him fully means there is no reason to worry. Don't worry about what's happening in society. There's nothing we need to do about it, because God is in control. And so the peace is what we need, the peace that comes from knowing God and knowing God's plan and knowing what God requires or asks of us. Then that is what stops us fearing, stops us feeling aggressive, stops us wanting to fight the system, fight the government, fight the police, etc., etc. And we just focus fully on God. And that's really what matters to me most, is focusing fully on God. And I don't want to shine the light. I don't want people to get hopeless. I don't want people to get negative and pessimistic, because that's not necessary. And that's what the media wants. The media wants people to be negative, hopeless and pessimistic. And so I'm concerned that by talking about the things that I've focused on in my videos, that it's maybe not helping people too much to embrace the light, embrace the joy, embrace the peace of God, which is really what I want for everybody. That's what I want more than anything else. So I just really want to share that message with you.